Our name is Ghosts Want You Dead. Our treacherous journey into the past continues apace. Though ghosts lurk in every shadow, we must plod on. Will we find what we are searching for? What is it we're searching for? Is it ghosts? Hello, I'm Matthew.
And I'm Rebecca.
Remind us, Rebecca, what happened last week on episodes 5 through 10?
So last week we got to know Sam Evans and his melodramatic drinking problem. And Burke had coffee with Victoria Winters, spooky baby. I don't know. There were
There
there
was
was darkness,
that,
there were shadows,
and
there was
I think mostly the key events from last time were Carolyn went to the hotel to throw herself at Burke and drag him home. And so we left off on Burke has just come into Collinwood and what's going to happen. And that was our big Friday cliffhanger. This week at episode 11, Victoria reminds us that Collinwood is still creepy and she is still searching for answers.
and it opens right where we left off in the foyer. Carolyn has brought Burke home, and Liz stares at him stonily. And he continues with his smooth guy routine to Liz, who is looking confused and
See,
fearful.
I didn't read it that way at all.
Oh,
I
sure.
I thought Burke is friendly with Liz and she's the first of all of the ladies that have crushes on him that he actually has any sort of chemistry with.
Oh, I took her to be a little standoffish and fearful about it, but maybe I'm wrong. But she invites him into the drawing room and she asks Carolyn to wait out there in the foyer. And Carolyn says, "No, I wouldn't miss this for the world," which is what all of you should say about listening to this podcast. And then there's a fun musical bit that is suspenseful, and we go into the drawing room.
Burke and Liz are being polite at first, and Carolyn is thrilled and very pleased with herself. But she is being sincere about, I think, trying to mend any fences between Burke and her family. She's not just exclusively trying to get in his pants, although that is on the agenda.
Sure, I think she's definitely taken with him and is maybe seeing new and different opportunities. A new rich, handsome bachelor has rolled up, but she does seem concerned about not wanting everyone to be so stressed out.
And Burke looks like he's casing the joint while they're having this friendly conversation. He's peering around at every corner.
He
And
does. I got that too.
Carolyn repeats the fake story about the imaginary business deal that's going to be taking him out of town.
Yes, and Burke's like, "You weren't supposed to tell." So he cuts her off and she's telling Liz, and she does tell Liz later because she clearly cannot keep a secret.
We move to the Collinsport Inn. Sam wanders into the inn being pretentious and obnoxious and annoying and drunk, like he often is all of those things.
This scene made me laugh so much because Sam comes in and he says, a drink, my kingdom for a drink." And then says, "That is a paraphrase of a famous author, Shakespeare. Ever heard of him?" Like, it was just so ridiculous to me and it made me smile a whole lot.
He's such a pretentious douche. I
I don't
do
know.
not like him. I do like Second Sam better, but at first I hated Second Sam even more.
I like Sam. I think that he is pretentious and I think he's playing it that way, but I'm enjoying it. Anyway, he's looking for Maggie and the innkeeper, Mr. Wells, is like, "She's on a break, but also you're drunk, so you need to leave her alone."
Hotel man tries to not so subtly sober him up and offers him coffee while they wait for Maggie. He eventually talks him into the restaurant with the promise of some gossip about Burke Devlin, Burke Devlin, Burke Devlin. And Sam is like, okay, well, I guess I'll come drink your coffee.
It does take him a minute, though. He's pretty belligerent and refusing at first.
But eventually he drinks the coffee in exchange for details about Carolyn's visit to the inn. Sam is surprised that they saw each other at all and extra shocked when he learns that they left the inn together, even more shocked still that they were likely headed back to Collinwood, and so are we. At Collinwood, Liz sidebars Carolyn for more details about the fake Venezuela story, which Liz also immediately is like, oh, well, he probably planted those papers for you to see. But then she is less skeptical after Carolyn tells her about the fake phone call bit that she didn't know was fake.
She says, "Please don't tell him. He'll be so furious." But then also kind of has a twinkle in her eye. Maybe he will spank me because I told, she's after Burke.
Back at the inn, Sam is being a pretentious dick to the hotel guy. Then he tries to call Roger from the payphone, but when Liz answers and he overhears her saying, I'll be with you in a minute, Burke, he freaks out and hangs up. Back in the drawing room, Burke is assuring Liz that the past should stay in the past and he's not mad and they can all be friends, but also not subtly implying that he wants to buy Collinwood. He asks about Roger, but Liz discourages him from seeing him. He assures her he's not seeking revenge, he just wants to visit with his old friend. Back at the inn, Sam has snuck off to the bar for a drink because it's been 5 minutes,
Yeah.
but he comes back to the inn and is even more self pitying and dramatic and drunk and annoying.
Sam Herzog and waxing poetic about how dangerous Burke is. He says that he's going to be his first victim, which is somewhat of a new development as it's seeming like Sam we're learning a little bit more about maybe how Sam has been involved in this.
Are we? What do you think has happened?
It seems that Sam is somehow involved, like maybe
He's the man that got killed.
he's the
Ooh.
man that got killed and he's a painter ghost, a drunk ghost. In the conversation later,
Yeah, I
I
think I
think it
was
comes
about
up
to bring that up that
that a man was killed.
back in the drawing room, Burke is talking about growing up poor before he went to prison and how he served 5 years and it was miserable. And Liz is being sympathetic, but then he shadily compares her being a weird recluse to his
Yeah.
jail time. Burke tries to sell Liz that he's not sore about going to jail and he just wants to move on. Is that when it comes up that someone had died?
I'm not sure, I don't see it in my notes, but I think it's maybe later when when Roger comes on the scene. Either way, Liz does seem to still be distrusting of his sudden just bygones be bygone.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much the end of episode 11. We
Oh, wait,
see
let
the
me
phone
see.
ringing in the foyer, and Carolyn answers, and she's jolly again and still real pleased with herself for dragging Burke home. It's Joe on the phone and they have a date. Liz sends Carolyn out to get Roger because she's decided, I guess, he'd better see Burke and maybe Burke is being sincere about being friends. And then that's the end of episode 11.
I think it does come up in the next episode because I remember in this one,
Okay, you think maybe it comes up in episode 12?
yes, I remember he says, he continues to say that they've all had to live with what happened for the last 20 years and that he wants it behind them and wants to move on. And that's the general
10 years. Episode 12, Vicky chimes in to remind us creepy spooky house, ghosts, answers,
The
and
force of 1,000 demons. Ah, and terrible loneliness of fear. I really do like making notes of the fun, spooky things she says.
she hears a weird spooky wind on the cliff that just sounds like wind. But Roger comes out to scare her. He is wearing a sweet cable knit sweater.
Yeah, he looks pretty dapper.
I was into his looking at the sea outfit.
Yeah,
Uh,
I do like his looking at the sea outfit.
he tells Victoria the story of the widows, which are some of the ghosts often discussed. And the widow's origin story is this cliff, which is now Widow's Hill, is where the wives of sailors used to come out and wait for their sailor husbands to return home. And then, if they had died, they would come out to mourn and weep off the cliff into the sea for their drowned husbands until the Collins family bought the land and then wouldn't let them come up there anymore. And so now they haunt the hill. It doesn't sound much like ghosts so much as it sounds like wind. It sounds like when it's real windy outside and the wind catches in your screen door and makes the wah sound. That's all.
Hold
It
on.
it just sounded like wind. Would you care to do an impression?
Phew. Like
It
hold
was
on.
just like
It
that.
was just like
Didn't sound
that.
at all like a
Um,
ghost. And Victoria agrees with me, but Roger is still trying to freak her out because that's his hobby is scaring young ladies on cliffs.
and he asks if about Sam approaching her, and then she does admit that he had, but then he is, fussing at her about having coffee with Brooke Devlin.
But before that, we
Oh.
do go over to the Evans
Oh,
residence
that's
for a
right.
moment where Maggie is trying to talk Sam out of leaving town. I guess he's decided off screen that he's going to leave town, but he won't tell her what the problem is. And would you believe that he is drunk and melodramatic and annoying about the whole thing?
No, not Sam.
Then, back on the cliff at Widow's Hill, Roger is throwing rocks off. That's when Vicky tells Roger that, oh, there was one more thing. Sam made me promise not to tell anyone else that he came looking for you.
Yeah,
And she reveals that she didn't because she had actually forgot about it until Roger reminded her just now, and that's
sure.
why she hadn't told him already.
Yeah, she's like, "There's been enough craziness going on at this spooky house with."
He's determined to be mad at her about something, so now he gets mean and accusatory about her having coffee with Burke Devlin, and thinks she's scheming or something.
I think more than usual for a 1950s, 60s gentleman, he gives hating women vibes pretty strongly.
Well, Roger kind of hates everyone,
Well, I can
uh,
relate, that's fair.
especially his son
Yes, he definitely hates David.
and his sister. He likes Carolyn okay for now, but we'll see. Oh my gosh, I just remembered a Carolyn thing that happens
Oh, good.
that we're gonna laugh so much about in 6 months.
Well,
We might, if you can commit to actually watching the show on your own ever, that we might want to pick up the pace a little bit. And I don't know, maybe do 10 a week.
yeah.
Because I've discovered there's a bunch of supplemental material that could keep us going if we burn through the main show. The 1991 reboot where Joseph Gordon-Levitt is David.
Oh my.
is on Amazon, and it was canceled after 12
I didn't
episodes.
even know that
But
existed.
we can also watch that. There are also movies that were made
Huh,
after the show was canceled with the original cast. There are also a series of audio dramas that
nice.
have been done. So there's lots of material for us to get through. So I think we might want to up the pace on 5 episodes a week.
That's fair. Well, Roger on the cliff is warning her that he is a dangerous man. Burke Devlin, Burke Devlin, Burke Devlin.
And she says, like, well, he seems nice enough, but
Yeah.
Roger is clearly scared of him.
Anyway, back in Sam's studio, he begins to make a call, but sets the phone down
And
because,
if it were a glass, he would have broken it. It had
yes,
the vibe of, ooh, somebody's about to break some pretend
yes, he
glass.
was feeling very conflicted. And he goes to pour a drink, but then stops himself from pouring the drink. And then Maggie comes in.
Because he's broken all of the glasses dramatically, so he can't pour a drink.
That's funny. Well, Maggie comes in, trying to keep him from leaving and doesn't understand why he wants to leave. And he won't
He's
tell her why.
yelling at her and being a belligerent dick.
Yeah, he's being difficult and maudlin. Then she begins a very melodramatic monologue to convince him to, share it with her and stick it out together, which was over the top and kind of fun. At least I was laughing at that. I don't know if you were enjoying it.
Eh, do you like Maggie yet, or you still don't?
I'm on the fence. She's not awful. She's growing on me a little, but I don't have a deep connection or affection so far.
Okay, we'll see how that goes.
I'll keep you updated.
She's got some good bits coming that you're going to like.
Good.
Anyhow,
Back
back
on the
on the
cliff.
cliff, Roger is being a dick to Vicky about how she needs to keep her loyalties to the family, and so she shouldn't see Burke at all. And then he tells her she ought to just go back to New York, and he doesn't want her there. At that moment, Carolyn comes out to bring Roger in to see Burke.
Vicky calls out to let her know where they are, and Carolyn shows up and says, "Hey, what are you guys doing up here? Planning a suicide pact?" There seems to just be a good deal of suicide jokes in this show, which, I'm good with. There's always someone standing on a cliff talking about killing themselves.
Anyhow, Roger goes into the house, and in the foyer, he calls Sam's house to say that he wants to see Sam about Burke, and he tells him he probably ought to get out of town, but Sam hangs up because he isn't done being a dick to Maggie, so he keeps that up for a while. The phone rings, and they just let it ring.
And then eventually put it off the hook.
Well, Sam aggressively stops Maggie from answering, and she asks for an explanation that Sam still refuses to give, and they go back and forth a bunch, but don't really say anything new. New Sam is coming in 2 weeks, and I can't wait.
Good. They go back and around for quite some time, and Maggie's trying to shame him and beg him into telling her what happened. Then back in the foyer,
Vicky asks Carolyn why Roger is scared of Burke, and Carolyn says, "Oh, I don't know, but maybe ask Matthew because he's been around forever, so he might know what went on between them years and years ago. Also, maybe you could ask him about your mysterious parentage, and this is how you get to his cottage. It's just right over there through the trees." Roger is trying to sneak out when Carolyn tells him that Burke is in the drawing room, and he freaks out and is scared. He hesitates before entering and then starts to sneak out again, but then finds his resolve and he takes off his coat. The score starts to intensify and get real spooky. And then the episode ends as he turns the doorknob to go into the drawing room. Episode 13, Vicky reminds us it's spooky and also tense at Collinwood.
Roger comes into the drawing room and kind of snubs Burke and asks Liz how long he's been here.
Meanwhile, Burke is being perfectly pleasant and friendly and just, hey, Roger, good to see you. Uh,
Hey, buddy, old pal. Yeah.
Liz relates that, oh, he's just come by to visit. Roger's being a dick and pours a drink before the spooky theremin intro.
Then Roger sort of postures, and Burke says he's left the prison things in the past.
Roger insists that maybe this is that conversation we were wondering about earlier,
Yes, this is when he says,
where Roger reveals that Burke must think that Roger is responsible for his having gone to prison, but Burke says he just wants to forget all that and that they can be friends again, but Roger is suspicious and rude. He asks Burke about, like, well, why you asking everybody about me, Joe and Vicky? But Burke explains it away.
well, and this was also where it is said that a man was killed 10 years ago. Roger says it's because Burke is guilty. In that moment, Burke kind of flashes his true emotions for a moment before he says, that's what the jury said. And I thought that was nice, a small little catch of him sort of letting the mask slip briefly.
In between, Vicky goes to Matthew's cottage and lets herself in like people do on this show because it's the 60s, I guess. But he catches her and is mad that she's in his house and he's still being mean. New Matthew will show up in episode 38. I also look forward to you meeting him.
I am eager to meet all of the long-term players, and I might be sad to say goodbye to some of the short term.
Vicky is telling Matthew about Bangor and her sad orphan backstory and the money and all of that when he reveals that Burke's trial took place in Bangor. He is still being mean and surly, but offers her tea and they're getting along a little bit
He
better.
does ask if Miss Stoddard knows she's there, and Vicky lies and says, yes, she does, which bites her in the ass later.
Well, technically she's not lying because Miss Stoddard directed her there. So
Exactly.
maybe she just misheard.
Sure.
And Carolyn knows, so surely Liz must.
Right.
In the main house, Roger is not being subtle as he's trying to get Liz out of the drawing room. It's like, why don't you go make some coffee or get some more ice or get Matthew to get some firewood or
Yeah,
do
she's
15 other. Eventually, she gets the hint and leaves the room. At this point, Roger invades Burke's personal space and gets too close and demands the truth. They do not make out, but you can tell that they want to. Roger warns him against trying for any sort of revenge. Burke laughs it off as though he couldn't possibly be interested in revenge, but he does ask after Roger's wife, like, how's your wife doing?
Yeah, and he also indicates that Burke and Roger's wife were together before Roger and her were married, and they, in fact, got married on the day after the trial ended and Burke was convicted. That was another little window into the tension between them.
Back at the cottage, Vicky is eating a muffin that Matthew has made and is full of praise for him. And like, oh, you do all this hard work and take care of everybody, and you make muffins. Woo.
You asked me, I think it was last week, which of the gentlemen on this show, I think I have a crush on Matthew. He is curmudgeon-y and sort of like a mean old sea captain, but also he bakes.
I do not think that
I
this
think I'm
crush will
charmed.
persist into Matthew number two.
Well, then I'm sad to lose my sweet muffin bacon sea captain.
I
It's
just thought of a funny joke that I will make when Matthew number two
okay.
arrives. Anyhow, Matthew is continuing to give his one line that he says over and over about how Mrs. Stoddard is the greatest lady ever and he's loyal to her and he'll do anything, absolutely anything, to keep her from harm or embarrassment. During this conversation, Matthew tells Vicky that she can find the schedule for the trains to Bangor in the garage. He also reveals that Roger has only been back at Collinwood for about a month and he's pissed about it. He says, like,
It's the
this is the
worst
worst thing
thing.
that's ever happened. Then, back in the drawing room, Burke again brings up to Roger this time, what would the house or the business sell for? Not interested in actually talking about it. He's just trying to freak Roger out. So he says that and then immediately excuses himself and says he's going to have to go, but asks Roger to meet him at the Blue Whale a little bit later to discuss a business proposition that he doesn't give more detail about. Now back at the cottage, Matthew tells Vicky about a time he was almost killed driving down the hill and that it's very dangerous and that you need to make sure you have good brakes to drive down that hill. At that point is when Liz calls asking him to bring firewood, and Matthew brings up that Vicky is there and is pissed when he finds out that she had not, in fact, asked Liz for permission to come visit, and he throws her out.
Then, as she is leaving, she goes to the garage to find those train schedules, and she catches Burke in the garage, seemingly messing with or looking at Roger's car.
He's hovering over Roger's car and he has a wrench in his hand. He says that he found it on the seat.
Right, and he tries to charm her. I think Vicky does seem to be a little concerned about what his intentions are, but they seem to have a pleasant enough conversation back and forth.
She's not concerned enough, given all the
Yeah,
Sturm and Drang about Burt Devlin, Burt Devlin, Burt Devlin, and everybody being scared and suspicious. She sure kind of writes this off. Burke is being flirty and also superior and dismissive of her and calling her a little governess. Burke leaves the garage. Back in the drawing room, Liz and Roger are discussing the visit. Roger does not believe Burke's willingness to forget the past. They're both skeptical about it, but Liz a little bit less so. Vicky comes back in. Liz corners her and explains. Vicky thinks she's in trouble for not telling her she was going to see Matthew, and Liz is like, "Oh no, you're not in trouble or anything, but Matthew is a lonely and strange man." And I was like, bitch, stop talking about me. But she's also like, but he can be very violent in my defense. So, not exactly threatening her, but kind of threatening her a little bit, it seems like.
possibly warning her more than threatening. I felt more it was like, he's weird and has this big crush on me, and if he thinks that you're not, or do you think it was more of a threat, like, don't fuck with me or else I'll sick my Matthew on you? Or
Kind of like
see, at
I
the
got the
time I
impression
more.
that was like, see what could happen when you do things without my permission.
Oh,
Like,
now that tracks. In the moment, I took it more as like, yeah, that's my little stalker fanboy, and don't like poke that bear because I don't want you to get hurt. But now it makes sense that it would be more of a see. So, okay. They wrap up that conversation and she's about to leave when Vicky asks Liz if Roger's going to use his car tonight.
but then she doesn't tell on Burke Devlin, so I guess
Yes,
she's not concerned enough.
I
Or maybe she
agree.
is, but Roger's been enough of a dick that she's like, maybe I just won't mention that he was clearly fucking with your brakes.
I mean, this man has yelled at her more times than days in episodes that we have seen, so
Well, to be fair, not much more than every other man has yelled at her.
this is true. You get yelled at a lot in the 1960s. Anyway, that's the end of that episode. Moving on to episode 14.
Victoria reminds us that it's still creepy at Collinwood. Ghosts and secrets and lies and all that.
David is reading a mechanics magazine in his room. And then he tosses it aside and paces the room and stares at his creepy reflection.
He's looking around mischievously and looks in the mirror, and then
He gets out a spark plug or something from his drawer.
something mechanical out of his dresser drawer.
He then goes into Vicky's room, which I accidentally called her Bucky in my notes somehow. I am a bad typer on my telephone, and I sometimes will do voice to text because of that. I have the arthritis in my hands.
You always trying to tell the people about your
I
maladies.
don't want to
This
do
is
that.
not
Cut
the
it out.
old people ailments hour week.
Okay, well, now we have deleted it because that's funny. Anyway, I was telling Bucky. I accidentally
About your
typed.
maladies.
Yeah, I was telling Bucky about all of my old people problems. Anyway, he goes into Vicky's room, starts snooping around, and seemingly leaves said spark plug in her drawer.
Well, it looks like he's looking for a place to plant this car part in her room,
Bucky
which
catches him.
I did not initially catch on the first watch of this. I didn't see that he had the car part in his hand.
Oh, I
So
did, yeah.
it seemed to me when I initially watched these episodes that they were creating more of a, well, who has sabotaged Roger's car? Was it Burke or was it David? But on this second viewing, it's pretty clear that it's David from the jump.
Yes.
I thought it was more ambiguous than
I
that.
also thought it was ambiguous until you pointed that out. So I do think that it read to me as though it could have been either.
Yeah, same the first time I watched it, but this time it's obvious from the jump that it was David.
Well, she comes in and catches him, and they have a little tussle, but he runs.
Yeah, she tries to grab whatever he has, but he runs away. And she follows and knocks on his door, but he won't let her in until she threatens to go get Roger. And then he does let her in, and she accuses him of taking something from her room, but he insists he was not. They argue about that, but he switches tack and says that he was trying to give her a present because they're supposed to be nice to each
Well,
other,
they
says Aunt Liz.
they
And
were having a conversation that was they talked a while, and she, was talking to him about how they should be pals and encouraging that, and that is when David switches.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that, and decides that, oh, I was giving you a present.
Yes.
He says that she thinks that his mother is never coming back and is getting pissy again, but she reassures that she's not trying to replace mother, and he says he was putting a present in her room and produces a seashell that he gives her. So they part ways friendly, but David immediately locks the door when she steps out.
And just generally looks shifty. Carolyn and Vicky talk in the hall, and Vicky tells Carolyn about the peace offering, and Carolyn is skeptical.
And warns that David is a kook.
Then they talk about her date with Joe, and she is like, I sure wish I were going out with Burke.
Yeah, in between this conversation, we pop away for a second
Oh,
to
yeah.
visit the blue whale. Whale, whale,
Whale.
where elsewhere
Oh.
at the blue whale. Burke and Joe run into each other. Joe is being cold and short and rude and clearly has not forgiven the whole spying blackmail attempt thing. So then we go back to Vicky and Carolyn chatting while Carolyn gets ready for her date with Joe, but goes on about Burke Devlin the whole time. Vicky tells her to ease up on that. You seem more interested in this dude who you are not going out on a date with, but Carolyn is defensive about it. Vicky, in conversation, reveals that Roger and Burke have plans to meet at the Blue Whale later. Joe and Carolyn were initially going to a movie, but Vicky realizes, oh, yeah, now Carolyn's clearly going to go and try and see Burke Devlin, Burke Devlin, Burke Devlin.
Yeah, she changes it up almost immediately,
Yeah,
when Joe
right
gets
then
there.
Joe arrives and Vicky goes down to let him in, and I guess they are just meeting for the first time, so they visit and introduce themselves and talk about ghosts, and they have more chemistry than Joe and Carolyn do.
They do, they would make a cute couple, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know if they do, like, some dramas where there's
I
a lot of
thought that that would
couple
happen,
swaps that happen,
but
but
spoiler, it does not.
well, that's a shame. I do think I like Joe now. I've seen enough of him that I'm fond of him.
Good. Well, Carolyn comes down while they're getting to know each other and announces that they are, in fact, going to the Blue Whale. Vicky tries to discourage her, but does not succeed. Upstairs, the door to the closed off west wing of the house opens on its own, and Vicky gets scared. She thinks it's David and is banging on the door and calling for him, but he comes up from behind her from his room and was like, that door was never open. It's locked. It's never open, and nobody but Aunt Liz has the key. It must have been the ghosts. And she says she doesn't believe in ghosts, but he assures her that if she lives there long enough, she will see ghosts. He also is still feeling generous and now gives her his mechanics magazine as a present because he's trying to frame her for his attempted murder of his father.
Because they're friends now. You're my friend.
uh,
I hate my father. You hate my father.
in this conversation, he asks if she likes Roger, and she says, yeah, he seems like a nice enough guy. And he's like, well, he hates you. Asks about Burke Devlin, and David's like, well, I bet Burke Devlin hates my father. My father hates Burke Devlin. Vicky asks why he's so preoccupied about people hating people. Then we pop back over to the Blue Whale where Joe and Carolyn have arrived, and she sees Burke in the corner and is making eyes at him. She suggests to Joe that they invite him to join, but Joe is not into this. Burke settles it for them and just comes over on his own.
Yeah.
He offers to buy them a drink.
And Carolyn thinks that's a lovely idea, and Joe is like, "What the heck is happening here?" He is clearly pissed, and he
Joe's
also
trying to
has
be like, we've got a movie to get to. We just stopped in for a minute, but then Carolyn asks Burke to join them anyway.
and I think it becomes clear to him that that was her plan all along when she had changed gears, that she was
Hmm.
hoping to run into him, which upsets poor Joe.
Yes, and back at Collinwood, Vicky is still trying to rehabilitate David's shitty attitude and
She
is
is nannying
encouraging.
at him, and
Is what?
as she is nannying at him and trying to be like, "Spoonful of sugar," like,
And be nice to your
"Be
dad
nice to your
and give him a
dad."
chance at least, won't you? And it comes up that Roger is going into town because Vicky says that she's going to see if he'll buy some magazines for him while he's in town, I think. And David is awfully interested in whether or not he'll be taking the car. David ominously says, like, okay, I'll give him a chance. Yeah, clearly is trying to kill his dad.
Yes.
End of
And
episode 14. So, on to episode 15. Vicky reminds us of the usual, still creepy, still ghosts, still
spooky.
secrets, all that. And Roger finds David in the drawing room sitting in the dark and is a dick. He's like, what are you doing sitting in the dark, you little weirdo? He asks David if he's seen his car keys. Before answering, David asks if he still plans to send him away. He then threatens him. Now Vicky is downstairs and runs into Roger as he's on the way out. Asks about picking up the magazines for David, and Roger refuses and again encourages her to go back to New York. I don't remember what conversation this was in reference to, but I did write down to mention that I love how everybody's always threatening to destroy everybody else.
Yes, that
Trying to
is.
destroy me, or I'm going to destroy you, or yeah, everybody always destroying somebody.
I do enjoy that.
And after Roger leaves, only after he leaves, Vicky tells Liz that she had seen Burke in the garage with the wrench like a game of Clue. Nobody tells Roger though. Like Liz is all, oh, thanks for
That's
letting me know, but then doesn't make any effort to tell Roger this before he gets in the car.
that is what I was going to say, and I saved it because but earlier I was thinking the same thing, like, she tells Liz about that,
Hmm.
but then one
Well,
proceeds to clue
Liz
him in at all.
Liz does try to discourage him from going to meet Burke, but she doesn't say anything about the car.
Yeah,
So everybody wants Roger to
about
have a
being
car
a
accident.
handsome asshole on the cliff.
Later, David is not surprised excuses because Roger said that he would not get magazines for him, and like he'd never get anything from me. He's terrible and a liar, and I hope he dies. I can't remember if he says it twice, but he probably
I
does
think he
because
does,
that's
yes.
his shtick. And Vicky comes back to David's room following him, and he's still being a little shit, but she talks him into giving Roger a chance. So at the last minute, David asks Roger on the way out not to take the car, but Roger is being a dick, and so David gives up on trying to discourage him and is like, no, that's all right. You're a dick. Go ahead and wreck. Later on, the phone rings. Vicky answers. It's Burke calling for Liz, asking if Roger is coming, and she says that he is. Liz asks Vicky to sit and hang out with her for a minute,
Yeah.
and she's in a weird mood. So Vicky is asking, what's the matter with David and why does he hate everybody and why is he a little shit?
In that conversation, Vicky asks, why does he think that Roger hates him? And Liz is kind of like, I mean, it's not
Oh, he
that far
does. Yeah.
off from the truth. Like, Roger does not like his kid. Like, it's clear. And so, I mean, while she is kind of like, hate's a strong word, but generally speaking, yeah, he kind of does.
Well, I think she does know, and we'll talk about it later when it comes up, but I'm sure you've already guessed. Upstairs, David tells the heir, he's going to die, mother. He's going to die. That was funny.
It was pretty good.
Back in the foyer, the phone is ringing, and David is just standing there watching it until Liz comes in to answer. And of course, it is the sheriff advising her that Roger has been in a wreck and is in the hospital, and the car went off the road. And that's the end of episode 15.
And the end of our recap for this time.
How you feeling now that stuff has started to happen.
I'm excited. I want to know more, and I'm feeling wrapped into the world of darkness and shadows. It was a sort of couple of serious episodes.
Just you wait, it gets bonkers, and that is something I wanted to mention. I did we discuss in the first episode about how it was confusing when we started watching because on Tubi there's Dark Shadows and Dark Shadows the beginning,
Yes.
and we already talked about this?
I don't know if we talked about it on the
Well, then
podcast
I'll
or if we
continue talking
recorded
about
it.
it. Well, it was confusing initially watching the show on Tubi because it's broken down into Dark Shadows and Dark Shadows the Beginning, which I thought, oh, that must be some sort of prequel that came out later. So I initially started with Dark Shadows, which actually begins at episode 210 of the show, which is when the Barnabas storyline gets going, and that is when the show became popular. And apparently, a lot of people think the early episodes before that are boring, but I disagree. I think it's all great fun.
Well, you and I are also big fans of more suspenseful dramas of the 1940s, and there is a certain hat tip to that, I
Well, yeah, a
feel.
lot of this is just fan fiction of classics from literature,
Sure.
like spooky old mansion governesses and being wrongly accused of crimes. And yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm into all that.
Yeah.
But stuff doesn't really start to get bonkers until about 200 episodes in.
I just remember that one episode that I started with you, the 210 or whatever, and then realized that we were wrong. I was very confused by someone's, and you'll know who it is, and I won't, but someone had a weird accent that was a combination of like New York Bronx meets or like Brooklyn
You are thinking of
meets Irish,
Well, you're
bro.
thinking of 2 people, I think, that we'll run into again when we get back up to that point, but
Sure.
there's Jason Maguire, who is Irish, and his sidekick, Willie Loomis, who is a street thug. When I accidentally watched that episode first, I didn't pay a lot of attention. I was just like, "Who the fuck are these people?
Yeah, I
I
was
don't
very
know anything that's
confused.
going
But I
on. This
also
is
did not
boring."
watch the entire episode because once we figured it out, I just bounced.
Well, I didn't figure it out until I had watched the whole episode.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, maybe this is a mistake. This show
Yeah.
makes no sense. I don't know who any of these people are. But yeah, turns out it's the best show ever.
It's pretty great. I think I'm going to watch at least 5 episodes next week, maybe 10.
I fucking hope so.
All right. Well, let's do it. And we encourage everybody to watch along with us if you're feeling like it. But if not, we'll just tell you about it.
In slightly less time than it takes to watch it. Like, the episodes run about 21 minutes, and we can summarize them for you in about 19 minutes each. So, but if you listen to us at like 1.5 times speed, then you'll really be
Right.
flying through it.
And also, we're a lot of fun.
Well,
Until next time or something.
we're finished. This is
Okay.
this is the end.
The end.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.